So we're on page 118 of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, chapter called Advice to Householders. And he's talking about one of the devotees here named Krishna Kishore. And the last paragraph that we read we'll cover again because it sets up the next paragraph. He says, once Krishna Kishore asked me, why have you cast off the sacred thread? In those days of God vision, I felt as if I were passing through the great storm of Aswin, and everything had blown away from me. No trace of my old self was left. So you get a little bit of a description here of what happens when you have that one of these higher visions, not just something quite akin to realization. It just completely removes your ego because you have an experience so direct. It doesn't come through the senses. It comes in your back door, as it were. It comes directly to the self. And so you don't use the instruments of ear and the instruments of eye and the instruments of nose in order to experience it. It's a direct experience. And that is one of the reasons that you are forever changed by it. In that state, any information that's given to you, like if there's a deity or something that you're having a vision of, when I give you words right now, I can only give you words. I can't give you any of the images and the experience that I'm putting into the words. You have to assign your own to it. And so we just kind of cross our fingers and hope that we can communicate in a divine vision or a direct experience, like what Thakur is talking about. With the word, will come full understanding. All that the deity intends comes with the word. You don't have to do any decoding at all. So you get full understanding of whatever the vision is instantaneously. And it's so bright and it's so clear and it's so obvious and it's so direct that you can never forget it. And forever after that, the world will sound like somebody talking through a box to you. It's like because it compared to the clarity and the directness of that experience, uh, the rest of the world will just sound like they're speaking through cheap speakers somehow. That process of interpreting and whatnot, just you have known something and experienced a self that you can never let go of. You know absolutely that it was real, and the rest was an interpretation, was a symbol. I lost all consciousness of the world. I could hardly keep the cloth on my body, not to speak of the sacred thread. I said to Krishna Kishore, ah, you will understand if you ever happen to be as intoxicated with God as I was. And it actually came to pass. He too passed through a God-intoxicated state, when he would repeat only the word Om and shut himself up alone in his room. His relatives thought he was actually mad and called a physician. Ram Kaviraj and Natagore came to see him. Krishna Kishore said to the physician, cure me, sir, of my malady, if you please, but not of my Om. Everybody laughs. So that divine intoxication, I don't know, what a beautiful idea. Ramakrishna used to stagger around like a drunkard. And he promised at least one of the devotees, if you come to me, I'll give you the wine, which you will never need to repeat for your intoxication. Hafiz has several poems about God being a bartender in a tavern, and he's serving up big drafts of God intoxication to everybody to the prostitutes and sailors sitting at the counter. The very beautiful ideal. One day I went to see him and found him in a pensive mood. When I asked him about it, he said, oh, the tax collector was here. He threatened to dispose of my brass pots, my cups, and a few utensils if I didn't pay the tax, so I'm worried. I said, but why should you worry about it? Let him take away your pots and pans. Let him arrest your body even. How will that affect you? For your nature is that of Ka. Narendra and the others laughed. He used to say to me that he was the spirit, all-pervading as the sky. He had got that idea from the Adhyatma Ramayana. I used to tease him now and then, addressing him as Ka. Therefore I said to him that day with a smile, "You are Ka. Taxes can't move you." This brings up a good point, though. When is it proper to tell somebody else, about that they should think in a particular way because they're not the body and they're not the mind? It's a good teaching here because he would run around telling people, "Oh, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind," because he had read about it in the scriptures. But you see, it wasn't time. He wasn't ripe enough to go around teaching that because as soon as the tax man came, he was worried about losing his pots and pans, which would be impossible for somebody who would have known their nature. And so this is a kind of a good time to know. I bring that up more or less more for like right now, a lot of people are passing on to the next thing. I know in the last few days I've been told of 3 people that have passed away. And when you're dealing with people who are grieving, you so want to say these things, like, "Oh, don't worry, he's in a better place, oh, he's free," or whatnot. And that's fine if that would be fine for you. You know what I mean? If you were the one who lost your partner or your mother or your father or something, and then someone said to you, "Oh, he's in a better place, he's not the body, he's not the mind." If that would give you comfort at that time, then you're allowed to give that comfort. If that would annoy you, because we don't want undigested Vedanta or any philosophy at a time like that. We really want empathy. More than anything, the best way to comfort somebody who's grieving like that is not to say anything. I mean, what do you have to say? Nothing can make that better. Nothing can make that go away. And so it's better at that time not to say anything. Understand that the ego wants to take control, the ego wants to fix, but be humble enough to realize you can't. And what you need to do at a time like that is just sit with them. Don't say anything. Touch them. Put your hand on a shoulder, take a hand in yours, put your hand on their leg, and just sit there and be quiet and share the pain. And if they want to say something, let them say something to you. I think that's the best comfort. Of course, if it's a friend, someone who knows you, then do do what your friendship dictates. Forget what I dictate. All right. You are Ka. Taxes cannot move you. In that state of God intoxication, I used to speak out my mind to all. I was no respecter of persons. Even to men of position, I was not afraid to speak the truth. One day, Jatindra came to the garden of Jadu Malik. He was an aristocrat of Calcutta. I asked him, "What is the duty of..."
Hi.
Oh, hi, Greg. I thought somebody was correcting me.
Okay.
All right. I was like, cool. So one day, Jatindra came to the garden of Jadu Malik.
It's just hard.
Jatindra came to the garden of Jadu Malik. I was there too. I asked him, "What is the duty of man? Isn't it our duty to think of God?" Jatindra replied, "We are worldly people. How is it possible for us to achieve liberation? Even King Yudhishthira had to have the vision of hell." This made me very angry. I said to him, "What sort of man are you? Of all the incidents of Yudhishthira's life, you remember only his seeing hell? You don't remember his truthfulness, his forbearance, his patience, his discrimination, his dispassion, his devotion to God?" I was about to say many things more when Hriday stopped my mouth. After a little while, Jatindra left the place, saying he had some business to attend to. Many days later, I went with Captain to see Raja, Surendra Tagore. As soon as I met him, I said, I can't address you as Raja, or by any such title, for I should be telling a lie. He talked to me for a few minutes, but even so, our conversation was interrupted by the frequent visits of Europeans and others. A man of Rajasic temperament, Surindra was naturally busy with many things. Jitindra, his eldest brother, had been told of my coming, but he sent word that he had a pain in his throat and couldn't go out. One day, in that state of divine intoxication, I went to the bathing ghat on the Ganges at Baranagar. There I saw Jaya Mukherjee repeating the name of God, but his mind was on something else. I went up and slapped him twice on the cheeks. Yeah, that he did that to Rani Rasmani too. When she was in her own shrine, she in the temple that he lived in, that she built. She was sitting in there in front of the deity, and she was thinking about a lawsuit, and he slapped her, and the guards were about to drag him off of the property, and she stood up and said, "No, no, he was right in what he did." So it's that knowledge, that direct knowledge. There's a wonder, and you see this in Swamiji sometimes. That Greg will remember that the name of her. I talked to him about it the other day. That opera singer, the French opera singer. Remember who that was? Anyway, she went to see Swamiji. She set up an appointment, and she dressed to the nines. It says, like, she really dallied herself up for the meeting with him. And she had this big hat like they used to wear with the big ostrich feathers on it and whatnot. And the writer says that Swamiji, got up and started walking around her as she was seated in the room there. And he began plucking the feathers out of her hat one at a time and throwing them on the floor. In these great souls, because they see things from such a clear perspective. And she later said, actually, that she could feel her ego diminish with each feather that was tugged from her hat. So he was blessing her. But how many of us would understand that and sit still for that, to be treated like that? And that's why with these divine souls, we should always, with a deep reverence, accept what they give, even if it's harsh, even if we don't understand it. That some of them have that ability to take years of practice off of our path just by their touch, just by their direct teaching like that. So here he is. He's talked now to two aristocratic people, very wealthy, powerful people, and didn't give them the respect that was common. And in India, that's a huge deal. Here, not so much, but in India, woo, especially back at that time, if you didn't address somebody by their title, or if you discounted them, or didn't pay your respects, it was a big deal. One day, in that state of divine intoxication, I went to the bathing ghat on the Ganges at Baranagar. There I saw Jaya Mukherjee repeating the name of God, but his mind was on something else, and I went up and slapped him twice on the cheeks. At one time, here's the story. At one time, Rani Rasmani was staying in the temple garden. She came to the shrine of the Divine Mother, as she frequently did when I worshipped Kali, and asked me to sing a song or two. On this occasion, while I was singing, I noticed she was sorting the flowers for worship absent-mindedly. At once, I slapped her on the cheeks. She became quite embarrassed and sat there with folded hands. Alarmed at this state of mind myself, I said to my cousin Haladhari, "Just see my nature. How can I get rid of it?" After praying to the Divine Mother for some time with great yearning, I was able to shake off this habit. When one gets into such a state of mind, one doesn't enjoy any conversation but that about God. I used to weep when I heard people talk about worldly matters. When I accompanied Mathur Babu on a pilgrimage, we spent a few days in Benares at Raja Babu's house. One day I was seated in the drawing room with Mathur Babu, Raju Babu, Raja Babu, and others. Hearing them talk about various worldly things, such as their business losses and so forth, I wept bitterly and said to the Divine Mother, Mother, where have you brought me? I was much better off in the temple garden of Dakshineshwar. Here I am in a place where I must hear about woman in gold, but at Dakshineshwar I could avoid it. The master asked the devotees, especially Narendra, to rest a while, and he himself lay down on the smaller couch. It's good to kind of see that behavior in Thakur, because I know that I'm very lax on myself when it comes to talking about worldly things. Just like when we started the class tonight, talking about all these singers and famous people and whatnot. Not that that's always wrong. It's not necessarily right or wrong, but someone in a God intoxicated state, it actually wounds them. It actually hurts to hear those things. It's the gulf between those things and the divine is just so vast that to have their mind pulled down to the things that they've renounced at that level of purity, affects them deeply. And so generally that's why that behavior is discouraged when you're hanging around with monks or devotees. Even at the temple, when you go to the temple, it's not proper to go and treat it like a social center. Like, even though you'll see all of your friends and your acquaintances, it's a temple, and the atmosphere there should be respected and maintained, and do the favor to your friends and acquaintances of not bringing their mind to their worldly matters. That's why that when Thakur says every now and then go off into solitude, get away from things that pull your mind down, that make you think it's normal to be concerned about worldly things. But it's not normal to be concerned about worldly things. A truly normal human being is enlightened. That's your nature. That's normal. Right now, we're in a state of deep ignorance, deep delusion, which is not normal. And Thakur's eyes were mad after things of the world. So he says, be mad after the divine. Be mad after pure love. The master asked the devotees, especially Narendra, to rest a while, and he himself lay down on the smaller couch. Late in the afternoon, Narendra sang. Rakal, Latu, M, Hazra, and Priya, Narendra's Brahmo friend, were present. Oh, Priya was there. Imagine. The singing was accompanied by the drum. Meditate, O my mind, on the Lord Hari, the stainless one, pure spirit through and through. How peerless is the light that in him shines. How soul bewitching is his wondrous form. How dear is he to all of his devotees. After this song, Narendra sang, Oh, when will dawn for me that day of blessedness, when he who is all good, all beauty, and all truth, will light the inmost shrine of my heart? When shall I sink at last, ever beholding him in that ocean of delight? Lord, as with infinite wisdom, thou shalt enter my soul, and my unquiet mind, made speechless by thy sight, will find a haven at thy feet. In my heart's firmament, O Lord, thou wilt arise as blissful immortality. And as, when the Chakora beholds the rising moon, it sports about for very joy, so too shall I be filled with heavenly happiness when thou appearest unto me. Thou, one without a second, all peace, the King of kings. At thy beloved feet I shall renounce my life, and so at last shall gain life's goal. I shall enjoy the bliss of heaven while yet on earth. Where else is a boon so rare bestowed? Then I shall see thy glory, pure and untouched by stain. As darkness flees from light, so will my darkest sins desert me at thy dawn's approach. Kindle in me, O God, the blazing fire of faith, to be the pole star of my life. Oh, succor of the weak, fulfill my one desire. Then shall I bathe both day and night in the boundless bliss of thy love. and utterly forget myself, O Lord, attaining thee. It's wonderful. You see, that's why we meditate. He said what was it that calmed his noisy mind? It was the image of the divine, the beloved in his mind. When he saw that true love, that true unconditioned presence of the divine, full of light, then you're just stunned to silence. Just stunned. But it doesn't have to be that. You don't have to see stars and lights and things. Just think deeply of God. When the mind is convinced of an infinite love, or convinced of a presence of such a pure love, the mind also naturally quiets in that presence, naturally stills itself. Narendra sang again, with beaming face chant the sweet name of God, till in your heart the nectar overflows. So see there, he connects those two, chanting the sweet name of God, with that fond reminiscence of the presence of the divine, that fond affection for thinking of the divine, for thinking of God. So much so that beaming face as you chant the name of the Lord. It's always curious to me that most people, when they're doing their meditation, it's almost like they're recovering from a punch. You're thinking of God, your beloved. You're sitting there. If your husband sat there with thinking of you and their mind was like, you'd be like, hello, you're thinking of me. Is that how you feel about me? So think of love when you're doing your practice. Oh, please don't just rotely do these things. Don't just do them like you're running a blender in the kitchen. Bring yourself back, come to your senses a little bit, understand. Oof, wait, this is the divine. This is forever. This is forever. This is immortal. This is a love that has no conditions for me. A love that is grace in its purest form for me. I can let go of everything I've ever done in the light of this grace with no remorse, just letting it be, just let it go. I can sit in this light, this presence. Remind yourself and sit there. After meditation, your face should hurt from smiling so broadly. With beaming face, chant the sweet name of God until in your heart the nectar overflows. Drink of it ceaselessly and share it with all. If ever your heart runs dry, parched by the flames of worldly desire, chant the sweet name of God and heavenly love will moisten your arid soul. A beautiful instruction right there. If your life isn't like that, if you aren't enjoying the bliss of God, he says right there, chant the sweet name of God. Just sing it. Make up a song, about the divine. In the same way that you would write a poem for your lover, write a poem for your lover. Write a poem for the divine, for God. Be playful, flirt with God, tease God, complain to God, laugh with God. Look at your faults and laugh at them, because you can do that in the state of divine grace, in the presence of an unconditioned love. You can sit there and laugh at your weakness, at how silly it is that you actually thought you were this. Just know that. Be sure, O mind, that you never forget to chant his holy name. When danger stares in your face, call on him, your Father compassionate. With his name's thunder, snap the fetters of sin. Come, let us fulfill our heart's desires by drinking deep of everlasting joy, made one with him in love's pure ecstasy. Now Narendra and the devotees began to sing kirtan, accompanied by the drum and cymbals. They moved round and round the master as they sang, "Immerse yourself forevermore, O mind, in him who is pure knowledge and pure bliss." Next they sang, Oh, when shall dawn for me that day of blessedness, when he who is all good, all beauty, and all truth will light the inmost shrine of my heart? At last, Narendra himself was playing on the drums, and he sang with the master full of joy. Can you imagine? What a scene? Can you just see Narendra? I mean, Narendra was such a powerful presence, those eyes, that face. You see it in his pictures. Can you just see him dancing around the master, singing the song, playing the drums, just full of life itself, just the very representation of enlightenment, dancing around his master, his guru, whom he for the rest of his life would only say, if you could only imagine the amount of love that this man had for us. If you could only imagine a tiny taste of that love, you would give up everything in your life for him. So here they are, dancing around, full of joy, singing with beaming faces. When the music was over, Sri Ramakrishna held Narendra in his arms a long time. Ooh, beautiful scene. Held Narendra in his arms for a long time. That is so sweet. And said, "You have made us so happy today." The floodgate of the master's heart was opened so wide that night that he could hardly contain himself for joy. It was 8 o'clock in the evening. Intoxicated with divine love, he paced the long veranda north of his room. Now and then he could be heard talking to the Divine Mother. Suddenly he said in an excited voice, "What can you do to me?" Was the master hinting that Maya was helpless before him, since he had the Divine Mother for his support? Narendra, M, and Priya were going to spend the night at the temple garden. This pleased the master highly, especially since Narendra would be with him. The Holy Mother, who was living in the Nahabat, had prepared the supper. Surendra bore the greater part of the master's expenses. The meal was ready, and the plates were set out on the southeast veranda of the master's room. Near the east door of his room, Narendra and the other devotees were gossiping. Narendra: "How do you find the young men nowadays?" M: "They're not bad, but they don't receive any religious instruction." Narendra: "But from my experience, I feel they are going to the dogs. They smoke cigarettes, they indulge in frivolous talk, they enjoy foppishness, play truant, they do everything of that sort. I have even seen them visiting questionable places." M: "Oh, I didn't notice such things during our student days." Narendra: "Perhaps you didn't mix with the students intimately. I have seen them talking with people of immoral character. Perhaps they are on terms of intimacy with them." M: "It is strange indeed." Narendra: "I know how many of them form bad habits. It would be proper if the guardians of the boys and the authorities kept their eyes on these matters." They were talking thus when Sri Ramakrishna came to them and asked with a smile, "Well, what are you talking about?" Narendra: "I've been asking M about the boys in the schools. The conduct of students nowadays isn't all that it should be." The master became very grave and said to M, rather serious, "This kind of conversation is not good. It isn't desirable to indulge in any talk but talk of God. You are their senior, and you are intelligent. You should not have encouraged them to talk about such matters." Narendra was then about 19 years old, and M was about 28. Thus admonished, M felt embarrassed, and the others also felt silent. While the devotees were enjoying their meal, Sri Ramakrishna stood by and watched them with intense delight. That night, the master's joy was very great. This is another little hint for you. When you sit in the shrine, what are you seeing? What are you thinking about? Is Kali always sitting there silent and reserved, judging, holding her space? Or do you imagine her delighted that you are there, delighted that you're sitting with her? Your chosen ideal. Always start your meditation period with thoughts like that. Remember the delight of God, that you are there. Remember that God has done all of this play to bring you there. How many avatars he has caused suffering to get that one message to you, that he'll do anything and everything to bring you into that union, into that sweetness. That there's no price at all. There's absolutely no line that God will not cross to touch you, to touch your heart. So see that. He says, while the devotees were enjoying their meal, Sri Ramakrishna stood by and watched them with intense delight. That night, the master's joy was very great. After supper, the devotees rested on the mat spread on the floor of the master's room. They began to talk with him. It was indeed a mart of joy. The master asked Narendra to sing the song beginning with the line, "In wisdom's firmament, the moon of love is rising full." Narendra sang, and the other devotees played the drums and cymbals. In wisdom's firmament, the moon of love is rising full, and love's flood tide in surging waves is flowing everywhere. O Lord, how full of bliss thou art! Victory unto thee! On every side shine devotees like stars around the moon. Their friend, the Lord, all merciful, joyously plays with them. Behold, the gates of paradise today are open wide. The soft spring wind of the new day rises fresh waves of joy. Gently, it carries to the earth, the fragrance of God's love, till all the yogis, drunk with bliss, are lost in ecstasy. Upon the sea of this world unfolds the lotus of the new day, and there the mother sits enshrined in blissful majesty. See how the bees are mad with joy, sipping the nectar there. Behold the mother's radiant face, which so enchants the heart, captivates the universe. About her lotus feet, bands of ecstatic holy men are dancing in delight. What matchless loveliness is here! What matchless loveliness is hers! What infinite content pervades the heart when she appears! O brothers, says Prem Das, I humbly beg you, one and all, to sing the mother's praise. Wow, just to see that even once. We have such reverence for those disciples of the Master. And this is why. This love is what they understood. This joy is what they understood. This amazing intimacy and sweetness is what they got to live. And look at how long it's been. None of us has talked to them. None of us has seen them. And all of us feel and see this. This is still echoing in the universe, still echoing through the minds of men and women. Sri Ramakrishna sang and danced, and the devotees, they danced around him. When the song was over, the master walked up and down the northeast veranda where Hazra was seated with M. The master sat down there. He asked a devotee, "Do you ever have dreams?" The devotee, "Yes, sir. Well, the other day I dreamt a strange dream. I saw the whole world enveloped in water. There was water on all sides. A few boats were visible, but suddenly huge waves appeared and sank them. I was about to board a ship with a few others when I saw a Brahmin walking over that expanse of water. I asked him, 'How can you walk over the deep?' The Brahmin said with a smile, 'Oh, there's no difficulty about that. There is a bridge under the water. I said to him, well, where are you going? To Baswanpur, the city of the Divine Mother, he replied. Wait a little, I cried. I will accompany you. Master, oh, I'm thrilled to hear that story. Devotee, the Brahmin said, I am in a hurry. It will take you some time to get out of the boat. Goodbye. Remember this path and come after me. Master, my hair is standing on end. Please be initiated by a guru as soon as possible. Shortly before midnight, Narendra and the other devotees lay down on a bed made on the floor of the master's room. At dawn, some of the devotees were up. They saw the master naked as a child, pacing up and down the room, repeating the names of the various gods and goddesses. His voice was sweet as nectar. Now he would look at the Ganges, now stop in front of the pictures hanging on the wall and bow down before them, chanting all the while the holy names in his sweet voice. He chanted Veda, Purana, Tantra, Gita, Gayatri, Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan. Referring to the Gita, he repeated many times, Tagi, Tagi, Tagi. Now and then he would say, O Mother, thou art verily Brahman, and thou art verily Shakti. Thou art Purusha, and thou art Prakriti. Thou art Virat, thou art the Absolute, and thou dost manifest thyself as the relative. Thou art verily the 24 cosmic principles. So you see, when you're bored, when you don't have something to do, these are the kinds of things that the master did when he didn't have any duties to attend to. Walking around looking at the holy pictures and bowing down before them, singing out their names, clapping his hands in joy, chanting scriptures, just thinking about, the names of the divine, just thinking about Mother and her qualities. It's spontaneous. None of this was practiced. None of this was learned. His heart just overflowed with these kinds of things. So we should give ourselves that opportunity. When you're sitting there trying to fall asleep and you can't, start thinking about God and start singing an impromptu song about the qualities of God. What you enjoy about God, what you hope to see in God, when you think he will come or she will come to you. But, fill your mind with these thoughts until they get deep enough to cause this ecstatic love in you, until you understand the idea of unconditioned love clear enough to know what it implies about you and about this endeavor, until it changes you. This world will never look the same again once you've rooted that unconditioned love within you. Once you've built these things within you. In the meantime, the morning service had begun. Had begun in the temples of Kali and Radhakanta. Sounds of conch shells and cymbals were carried on the air. The devotees came outside the room and saw the priests and servants gathering flowers in the garden for the divine service in the temples. From the Nahabat floated the sweet melody of musical instruments befitting the morning hours. Narendra and other devotees finished their morning duties and came to the master. With a sweet smile on his lips, Sri Ramakrishna was standing on the northeast veranda, close to his own room. Narendra: Hey, we noticed several sannyasis belonging to the sect of Nanak in the Panchavati. Master: Yes, they arrived here yesterday. To Narendra: I'd like you to see you all sitting together on the mat. As they sat there, the master looked at them with evident delight. He then began to talk with them. Narendra asked about spiritual discipline. Master: Bhakti, love of God, is the essence of all spiritual discipline. Oof, oof. Do you see that? The essence of all your discipline is the love of God, devotion. That is the essence, nothing else. We don't put the mind on trying to calm itself. We don't put the mind here, there, otherwheres. We soak ourselves in divine love, as bhaktas. as people loving God. We soak ourselves in this infinite love, and in the silence of mind, you listen to the love of your heart. You listen to that bliss, that ananda, that is your nature, that is yours before thinking, before experience, before even your own awareness of yourself, is this love that is your nature. So bhakti, the love of God, is the essence of all spiritual discipline. Through love, one acquires renunciation and discrimination naturally. Naturally. So through this love of God, through this contemplating the nature of the beloved, as that begins to reverberate in your heart, because that's your essence, that's your nature, that's what you are. You are divine. And when you sing that name, when you remember that love, you become a guitar body, really. That sound vibrates, the strings of your own heart begin to harmonize with that sound. And that begins to connect with that sound that is always present within you. They call it you could call it the anahata, but that sound, that's music of the spheres, vibrates in harmony with the name and the thought of this divine love. Narendra, isn't it true that the Tantra prescribes spiritual discipline in the company of a woman? He's only 19. Asking his teacher, Master, that is not desirable. It is a very difficult path and often causes the aspirant's downfall. There are 3 such kinds of discipline. One may regard woman as one's mistress, or look on oneself as her handmaid, or as her child. I look on woman as my mother. To look on oneself as her handmaid is also good, but it is extremely difficult to practice spiritual discipline looking on woman as one's mistress. To regard oneself as her child is a very pure attitude. Yeah, for obvious reasons. To think of a lover, to think of your beloved as your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your mistress or your paramour. How are you going to disidentify with your body thinking in that way? You see, you have to have a very pure mind for that to be successful, for that kind of, it definitely generates a lot of that inner warmth, but you have to have the discipline to hold that inner warmth in the space of the heart and to not let it drop into other chakras that are more problematic for us. So this is he's saying, that this is not the best way to think of the divine. Think of the divine as your father or mother, as your brother or sister, or as your child. And even at one point says that the safest one is to think of God as master and you as the beloved servant, that's been there with him in all of his days, which is actually true. You your devotion may seem new for you, but God has been gently working on you for thousands of years. God has patiently been with you through all the lives and experiences that you can't remember at this moment. That intimacy of God toward you, unbelievable. You will actually never understand the depth of that connection. He's been there for every thought that you've ever had, in any body at any time. He was present. The sannyasis belonged to the sect of Nanak entered the room, and they greeted the master, saying, Namo Narayana. Sri Ramakrishna asked them to sit down. Master, nothing is impossible for God. Nobody can describe his nature in words. Everything is possible for him. There lived at a certain place 2 yogis who were practicing spiritual discipline. The sage Narada was passing that way one day. Realizing who he was, one of the yogis said, You have just come from God himself. What is he doing now? Narada replied, Why, I saw him making camels and elephants pass and repass through the eye of a needle. At this, the yogi said, Is that anything to wonder at? Everything is possible for God. But the yogi said, What? Making elephants pass through the eye of a needle? Is that even possible? You have never been to the Lord's dwelling place. At 9 o'clock in the morning, while the master was still sitting in his room, Manu Mohan arrived from Kunagar and some members of his family. In answer to Sri Ramakrishna's kind inquiries, Manu Mohan explained that he was taking them to Calcutta. The master said, Today is the first day of the Bengali month, an inauspicious day for undertaking a journey. I hope everything will be well with you. With a smile, he began to talk of other matters. When Narendra and his friends had finished bathing in the Ganges, the master said to them earnestly, Go to the Panchavati, meditate there under the banyan tree. Shall I give you something to sit on? About 10:30, Narendra and his Brahmo friends were meditating in the Panchavati. After a while, Sri Ramakrishna came to them. M too was present. The master said to the Brahmo devotees, In meditation, one must be absorbed in God. By merely floating on the surface of the water, you cannot reach the gems that are lying at the bottom of the sea. Then he sang, Taking the name of Kali, dive deep down, O mind, into the heart's fathomless depths, where many a precious gem lies hid. He's talking about you. Remember this. These words are about you and about the divine mysteries of your body and your mind, and what we are going to touch in our practice. So this deep diving is not questioning one thought after another, trying to go deep into your thoughts. It's trying to go under the thoughts, trying to separate yourself from them and get to a point where you are clearly observing them without attachment, and to not see the changing mind as the thing that's interesting, but to see the silence that is behind you as you watch the mind. That's the depth. That's where you're trying to place your attention. That awareness of awareness, before thought, before mind, before personality, before words, to go into this depth within us, into the heart's I can't say that word, fathomless depths, where many a precious gem lies hid. You see, this is the beauty of the Vedanta. This is the beauty of spiritual life. What is the deepest thing in you? A beautiful gem, the image of the divine, the image of love within you. But never believe the bed of the ocean bare of gems, if in the first few dives you fail. Yeah, so if you've had a few years of bad meditations, don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going. Just keep going forward, keep going forward, keep going forward. There's a marvelous poem by Hafiz where he says, the Lord and I were whirling in love on your roof, waiting for you to join us tonight. If you had just whirled one more time, we would have joined you. So always have that attitude. God, even if it's a terrible meditation, know that it is only your inability to see God that prevents you from seeing him. It's not the fact that the divine is not present. It's never a matter of judgment. It's never a matter of God staying away. It's just a matter of noise. It's just a matter of attention. So always know that you are, when you practice, especially in the divine presence. There is no need to look for God. There is no need to try and find him. There's only the need to relax and understand in faith that you are in that presence. Your very existence is that mark. Your very ability to feel and offer love is that mark, that promise to you. But never believe the bed of the ocean bare of gems if in the first few dives you fail. With firm resolve, firm resolve and self-control, Dive deep and make your way to Mother Kali's realm. Down in the ocean depths of heavenly wisdom lie the wondrous pearls of peace, O mind. And you yourself can gather them. You yourself, you can gather these pearls of peace. If you but have pure love and follow the scripture's rule, within those ocean depths as well, 6 alligators lurk, lust, anger, and the rest, swimming about in search of prey. Smear yourself with the turmeric of discrimination. The very smell of it will shield you from their jaws. Upon the ocean bed lie strewn unnumbered pearls and precious gems. Plunge in, says Ram Prasad, and gather up handfuls there. So this is wonderful. While you're sitting there trying to find that space, that quiet space from which you can observe mind detached, what does he say? He says, smear yourself with the turmeric of discrimination. What is that discernment? What are you discerning between? The real and the unreal, right? The real and the unreal. The unreal is the changing. From that perspective, the mind. The whole world is your mind. We've talked about that many times. You live in a mind, not the world. And that moving mind, that noisy mind is the world. And through discernment, you look at that and you're like, it's changing. It's not real. See how that thought rises. See how it falls, leaving nothing in its place. Know that every thought and everything is a thought. Everything in your life is a thought. You have never experienced anything but a thought under any condition. Everything you've experienced in life is a thought. Everything in your room right now is a thought. Everything that you're feeling, the back of the bed or the chair on your back, all of it is a thought. Understand that and know it's just a thought. This world is just a thought, just like a dream, right? It's a thought being projected by the ego on Brahman, a play. And so as you are sitting there in the depths, as you're trying to open yourself to the reality, discourage yourself from having any interest in the mind by understanding that it's moving, it's changing, and therefore it's unreal by the teachings of your own beloved. If it moves, it's unreal. If it changes, it's unreal. And what you will see is that by knowing that, then place your attention on that which is being implied by that change, the unchanging you, that presence, your awareness, which is the I am, which is God, hidden because you don't know, unaware because you've been watching the change and movement for so long. Smear yourself with this turmeric of discrimination. The very smell of it will shield you from their jaws. So these things, these thoughts in the mind, these thoughts that have the tendency to pull us out of our quiet, pull us out of our peace, and put us into the world of turmoil, the world of responsibility and duty, and ups and downs, and happiness and sadness, and misery and suffering and joy. That world which only exists in this mind can only be escaped through this discernment, to know this is not real. That which is unchanging, myself, the self which is meditating, the self which is watching the mind, that is what I am. And through this strict, what does he say there? This intense self-control. The very smell of it will shield you from their jaws. It will work. It will protect you. That discernment will lead you out of that danger. Upon the ocean bed, this is you. Where is the ocean bed? the heart of your heart, your very center. And what is there? Unnumbered pearls of peace, unnumbered. So look inside and see an unnumbered, vast expanse of these pearls of peace and precious gems. The precious gems, all the virtues, the love of God reflecting and sparkling off of all the avenues of creation. Plunge in, says Ram Prasad, and gather up handfuls there. See the eagerness that you would have if you were inside, if you were to see this, even in the worldly state, just these beautiful gems of your nature, of what you are, that you're not a person with all of these faults and all these shortcomings and all of these lacks of controls and full of desires. That's not you. You're not a sexual being. You're not a woman. You're not a man. You're not in relationship. You're not any of these things. You in this ocean of the self are ever free, full of bliss, full of divine love. Unlimited numbers of gems are there for you. If you can be but forbearing in your practice, if you can be tenacious and say to God, these are mine by right. The vision of you is not a favor. You are my beloved, my father, my mother, my creator. I have a right to see you. I have a right to know you. And barge in there, barge into that silence and grab up handfuls of these gems that are yours. They lie there for you. They are there for you to find. So find them and be natural, respond naturally to such a wonder, to such a divine grace, and enjoy your practice. Drink deeply of that love. Laugh yourself to realization. Sing yourself to realization. Dance yourself to realization. But don't you dare mope yourself to the end of a meditation. Be free. Be free. All right. It is 8 o'clock already. 8:03 even. Any comments or concerns? Insights? Oh, I didn't pin myself again. Goodness, I wish it would do that automatically. I guess it's mine to wear my faults on my sleeve for everyone to enjoy. All right. Very good. Where did we stop here? Right there. It is so beautiful that we get to do this. I mean, it's one of those things that I often think about it. There was a time when I was sad that I always thought it was unfair, like look at what Vivekananda and all those boys got to enjoy, and what do I get to enjoy? It's like, how come I can't see Thakur, be with Thakur, enjoy them? Must have been amazing for them. And it was amazing for them. There's no doubt about that. But what's amazing for us is that we've got this right here. You can pick this up anytime you want. You've got the whole story, right here. They didn't have that. They could only be with Thakur when they were with Thakur. And they didn't know who he was. They didn't understand that his name would be sung around the world, within 100 years. They had no idea. Vivekananda, he was just a 19-year-old dude. Some people thought he was arrogant. That was their opinion of him when they first met him. It's like they didn't see what he became. They didn't see the awakened soul who marched around the world and with such power, such delight, spoke only of God. But we do. We know the whole story. We know the effect it had on the world. We have a million advantages that they didn't have. Sure, they had some great ones that we don't have, but we have literally a million of them that they don't have. And so think about these things. Fill your mind with these things. Inform your practice. Inform your love. Inform your effort with this divine love, this divine knowledge of this visitation that we've had from God herself to visit us, this time in 3 embodiments, Thakur Man Swamiji. So you have triple the help. Triple the help. I like that thought. You have triple the help. All right, take that triple help. Do your practice.
Thank you,
Realize
Maharaj.
Thank you.
Indeed. Jai Ma, Jai Thakur,
Thank
Jai
you,
Sa.
Swami.
Good night. Be well all.